how do you learn it? How do you get wiser? How do you get stronger? And how do you get more educated? What kind of training are you doing? I like to learn from everywhere I am, everywhere I go, and everybody that I meet. And it's really interesting as an old lady now. I'm still learning every day from older people, and I'll just give you a beautiful example. I've spent some time today with a more mature couple who are about 20 years older than me, which technically is very old. And all I did was ask questions. Now, I've lived on the planet for 6 decades. I've had a lot of life experience. I've travelled the world. I've done lots of exciting things. But people that have lived 20 years longer than me, they've seen a lot more than I have. They've experienced a lot more than me. So I know that I can learn from them. And it's a really interesting question that I always ask people, particularly if you're 20, 30, 40, 50. Are you learning from other people's experiences? Are you learning from people who have done the stuff that you haven't done? And if I'm talking and telling people what I've done, how can I possibly learn? So I've just spent some very special time with 2 people 20 years older than me, asking lots of questions about their life experience, things that they have done, they have achieved, mistakes that they've made, things that they would advise me to do because they've lived 20 years longer than me. K-Man and I, my gorgeous husband, who technically, if you're 20, you would consider us to be very old, and I get that, and I love that, because we are old. But I always find it fascinating, and I'll use K-Man as an example. My gorgeous husband has a master's degree in exercise science, and he's been practicing that particular skill at an in-depth level for 40 years. He knows anatomy and physiology better than anybody that I've ever met, but people, when they invest time with him or when they spend time with him, they don't seem to get a return on their investment because they don't ask him any questions. People very rarely ask him about his experience as an exercise physiologist, as a biomechanist, as a published research scientist. He's also a current world champion in martial arts, and it's interesting because people look at him and think he's an old guy. But when you see him fight, and he still fights at the world championship level, he competes at the world championship level, people who are younger than him and want to do what he's done, they don't ask him any questions. They just tell him what they've done. People who own a gym, or they exercise on a regular basis, or they do martial arts, they don't ask K-Man any questions, even though they haven't experienced a tiny amount of the things that he has. And he will share with you happily that he's made lots of mistakes and learnt from his mistakes, and he would recommend that you don't do this. But we just had this conversation, and what we both shared was perhaps that's a good thing. Perhaps it's better for you to make your own mistakes rather than learn from other people's mistakes, because is it possible that our mistakes make us stronger? Wouldn't it be nice, though, that if you could get a little bit of insight into life by people who have lived life for a really long time? So my question is this: where do you learn? How do you get your training? How do you get your education? And if your training, learning and education is currently coming from social media, from Google, from YouTube, from TikTok, from Facebook, from Instagram, perhaps there's more to the world than young people's experience on social media. Have you invested time with people who have lived on the planet a really long time? And there's another group of people. I've spent time today with people who are 80. There's another group of people that are 100 plus. And those people, imagine what they've seen. They've lived on the planet for over 100 years. If you get the opportunity to invest time with people like that, please don't waste the investment of time. We only get a small amount of time. That's one of the things that we all have in common. We have 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, 52 weeks in a year. We don't know how many years we're going to get. The people that have had the privilege of getting 100 years plus, 80 years plus, 60 years plus, and here's a great thing. What have they done? Where have they been? What have they achieved? And if you have the opportunity, for example, to invest time with someone like K-Man, my gorgeous husband, who's intelligent, who's educated, who's experienced, who's been a multi-millionaire, who's set up 15 or more different businesses, these are people that are very willing to invest their time in you if you ask the right questions. I'm at the point now in my life where I'm so old now that I have become invisible, and I quite like that. But I always find it fascinating because people will tell me about their problems and their mistakes and their challenges, But they never ask me, Rowie, what do you think I should do? Or how could I improve on this? Or how could I get better? And I've got lots of life experience too. I've lived on the planet a very long time. I've done a lot of things. I've been very, very successful at a lot of things. But I'm not the person that's going to say, hey, you should ask me because I've done so much stuff. I'm just sharing with you very personally that if you have the opportunity to invest time with people that have lived on the planet for a long time and they've been successful in their time on the planet, perhaps it's a really good idea to ask questions rather than talk. If you're talking, all you're hearing is what you already know. If you get to invest time with really smart people with life experience, perhaps you could learn something. And if you learn every day, what a great way to live your life to the max.